Doc Rivers in the office next here, Michael. A step into my office Hall of Famer. Since taking over a 30-13 Bucks team, Rivers has coached the team to a sub-500 record. Giannis Antetokounmpo is injured now, dealing with a calf issue. How should Doc approach this final stretch of the NBA regular season and into the postseason?
The appointments are lined up.
You waiting for somebody in there?
Got an appointment.
And it's not about what you want to hear, but what you need to hear.
It's not personal. It's strictly business. It's time you and me had a private talk, Winger. Step into my office.
It's Step Into My Office with Michael Lombardi. Mr. Lombardi, we'll see you now.
Mr. Lombardi, we'll see you now. Coach Cal, John Calipari, new head coach of the Arkansas Razorbacks, which that's going to take a while to get used to saying here, Michael. But yeah. Cal, after 15 years at Kentucky and going 1-4 the last 5 tournament games, BBN was no longer pleased. Mutually parting ways there with Kentucky. He heads to Arkansas. He said that the program, quote, probably needs to hear another voice. So I think this could be a win-win for both Big Blue Nation and Arkansas with Coach Cal headed that way. What does he need to do, though, differently with the Razorbacks to regain the former success that he has had as a head coach?
Well, I think he's got to go back to building a team, right? I think Coach Cal, I think one of the issues you've always been able to do is kind of one and done, and you've taken great pride in how many players go play in the NBA, but that's not going to win any favor in Arkansas. You're going to have to win and go advance in the tournament because the guy you replaced was taking a team to the Elite Eight 2 out of the last 3 years. And so there's a standard that he had. Now, obviously, they didn't play very well last year, but I think this comes back to your willingness to adapt to team building. Are you going to continue to think you can get the elite 5 stars, bring them in, treat them like that you treated them at Kentucky, or can you go back to your old UMass days, to where you found Marcus Camby over there in Bridgeport, Connecticut, to where you found these young players and developed them and kept them for 4 years and used your skill as a coach to develop talent? You said in your release when you were leaving Kentucky to say goodbye on Instagram, you talked about how much satisfaction you get in developing players, how much satisfaction you get from walking in the gym and coaching. I think you got to do that, and you have to keep a team together. I think you got to shift your dynamic completely because Arkansas is in Kentucky. Great facilities, nice. They sell out 18,000 people. You're going to have to get rid of all that blue in your closet. I don't know where it's going to go, but you're going to have to put red on. And it's going to change. But when you change colors, you got to change your team building approach as well. And I think that's ultimately what it comes down to. Don't get tempted by the 5 one-and-done kid. You can't coach that kid. They're not coachable. What you got to get is somebody who's a 3-star and make him into a 4-star.
And actually, like you said, coach a team. He goes from $8.5 million a year to $7 million at Arkansas, but the contract is very incentive-laden when it comes to SEC tournament, NCAA tournament, and there is a non-compete, so he can't leave for another team in the SEC, which our guy Elliot Bowman was joking, like, how did Kentucky not have that? Interesting point for sure. Arkansas's national championship odds.
Well, but let's be clear. Let's be clear here. Now, Cal had... I think he had $8 million a year. He had $33 million left on that deal he signed when he turned UCLA down. And so what the headline is going to be that he took a pay cut, but he didn't because he got another year. And so now he's really just added more money over the time. And so in exchange for a lower 5-year total, he picked up an extra year because literally he could have been out of work. And next year, if they decide to pay him off. Look, this whole thing, the reason he did this is because they didn't want to buy him out at $33 million, and he wasn't going to quit and leave $33 million.
Arkansas's national championship odds with him now as their head coach go from 70-1 to 30-1 in a flash. Dan Hurley, somebody I'm sure Kentucky would love to have as their next head coach, but it seems unlikely that he'll be willing to leave UConn after winning now back-to-back titles. He said in his post-game after winning this year's championship, the Kentucky job opening was, quote, not a concern. What's most important for Hurley to continue this run of success, and do you think he should consider Kentucky if they roll out the Brinks truck?
No way you should consider Kentucky. No way. Because who you are as a coach is represented by your team. And once you go to Kentucky and you're not number one in recruiting and you're not taking 5 stars, people are going to wonder what you're doing. All the pressure on the job is about who you recruit at Kentucky. And that's what got Coach Cal. I mean, look, he had the best recruiting years of anybody every single season, and yet he couldn't coach them because this is why Jay Wright's doing television and not coaching at Villanova. It's hard to coach college basketball players who have been recruited since the 8th grade and have been pampered and told how great they are for so long. And you can do it at Kentucky, just like you talked about, where you're looking the parents in the eye and saying, you're going to let me coach your kid. And that's not going to be at Kentucky. Look, money doesn't buy happiness. We know that. Stay at Connecticut. You can up your fee to go speak to business leaders across the country. Make more money that way.
UConn opened the second shortest shot behind Duke to win it all in 2025 at 12-1. They have since been bet down to 10-1, now co-favorites with the Blue Devils. How about John Mara stepping into the office? Owner of the New York Giants, he told reporters earlier in the offseason he would approve of drafting a quarterback if the Giants fall in love. You wrote your column about this topic earlier today. How important is it for the Giants to replace Daniel Jones, or does he deserve another shot?
Well, I think the wheels need to be in motion to replace Daniel Jones, because I think you're going to ask yourself the question, you signed him to a 4-year contract, but this contract clearly was a 2-year deal that you can get out of. And if you don't draft a quarterback, how are you getting out of this deal? And there's nothing that Daniel Jones has done to indicate you want to continue down this road. And so for what you need to do, and as much as Joe Shane can talk about, we're not, we have a lot of other needs. Yeah, you do have a lot of other needs on your team. But the biggest need of all is trying to figure out how the hell you're going to get out of this, get your quarterback position fixed. And with Daniel Jones, you're sitting there saying to yourself, in 2025, you're not going to have a $41 million cap hold on your cap with this guy at quarterback.
The Giants.
So you're going to have to do something.
Yeah, the Giants currently have that number 6 overall selection. They are minus 160 to go wide receiver with the first selection, plus 130 to take a quarterback, whether at 6 or if they move up. Doc Rivers in the office next year, Michael, a step into my office Hall of Famer. Since taking over a 30-13 Bucks team, Rivers has coached the team to a sub-500 record. Giannis Antetokounmpo is injured now, dealing with a calf issue. How should Doc approach this final stretch of the NBA regular season and into the postseason?
Well, I think he's got to get Giannis healthy. That's pretty obvious, right? And so he's got to get that. But I think, he was hired for you were hired for your defensive acumen. And this is your specialty. And you're one game below 500. I think you're going to have to change your approach on how you're going to get the team to buy in. Because this doesn't look good for you as a coach. Because we know come playoff time, Doc, I lived it, man. It ain't pretty. It's usually good in the regular season, but it ain't pretty in the postseason. So you're going to have to change your approach, and it starts with playing better defense and getting the players to buy into what you're doing. When you're one game below 500 with the talent that they have on the team, and you could talk about putting Beverly in the lineup and benching somebody else, they're not listening, and you're going to have to figure out a way to listen.
Yeah, that's why the Celtics are an odds-on number in the Eastern Conference. The Bucks are the second shortest shot, plus 550, 13-1 to win an NBA title. They were minus 3,000 in the division a couple weeks ago. Currently minus 105 with the Cavs 2 games back and 3 to go at plus 110. Bucks have a home-and-home against the Magic and one at OKC remaining. Cavs host Memphis, Indiana, and Charlotte. How about Matt Painter, Boilermakers head coach, stepping into the office here following a loss to UConn in that national championship game with Zach Edey moving on. Michael, what will be key for Painter to do with this program to propel this year's success into the future?
Well, I mean, you've established your brand. You've been a winning program for a long, long time. I think, Matt, you just got to keep doing what you're doing and stop listening to anybody who tell you can't do it. You're measured by getting to a place which you finally gotten to. Everybody was ridiculing you because you couldn't get there. But yet in reality, you did. And even though you didn't win the game, you still have a really good program at Purdue, and you got to focus on the future and use the success that you attained this year to convince the kind of kids that you get to coach to come to your school and develop. And one thing with having Zach Edey, I think it's a great lesson, right? He wasn't talented enough to go to the NBA, so every year he got better. And what happened around him? Every year your team got better, and you weren't in the one-and-done program. And I think that's really important. I think you know who you are now better than ever, and don't listen to the noise.
The latest ESPN Jeremy Woo draft analyst mock has Edey going 13 overall. If that holds, he'll be the second highest drafted Purdue player since 2000. Jaden Ivey at 5th overall. I'm just saying that's what he has. Purdue.
Oh my! Are you kidding? I mean, I got my man over here, Bill Berman, thinking he could score on him in the low post. I mean, come on. He's telling me he's going 13.
I'm just telling you what the mock draft analysts are saying, okay? Purdue is 30-1 in next year's title odds.
You, Stormy.
They've got 2 ESPN top 100 players coming in, including a 7'3" guy from New Hampshire, Cannon Catchings and Jakari Harris.